That's also nice. Resort.
Great. Well, good evening and welcome to the January 11th, 2024 regular meeting of San Diego Community Power's Community Advisory Committee. My name is Matthew Vasilakis, the chair of the committee and the representative for the city of San Diego. We welcome members of the public, San Diego Community Power staff, and our committee members joining us in person and online today. I want to thank SDCP staff for making this in-person meeting possible and the city of San Diego for accommodating us today. I will now call the January 11th, 2024 regular meeting of the Community Advisory Committee of San Diego Community Power to order. Joining us today as our meeting clerk is Meg Weigelman, who will now call the roll.
Committee Member Anderson.
Present.
Committee Member Price. Committee Member Emerson.
Here.
Committee Member Castaneda. Present. Committee Member Webb. Committee Member Sandoval.
Present.
Committee Member Hammond.
Present.
Committee Member Johns.
Present.
Committee Members Clefani.
Present.
Secretary Cazares.
Present.
Vice Chair Harris.
Present.
Chair Vasilakis.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Vice Chair Harris, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
To the
flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We would now like to take a brief moment to provide a land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we are conducting our meeting is located in the traditional territory of the Kumeyaay people. We recognize the Kumeyaay Nation as the rightful stewards of this land and are committed to learning from and working with local Indigenous communities to honor their sovereignty, respect their cultures, and support their efforts to heal from intergenerational trauma and systemic injustices that continue to impact them today. Thank you, the Kumeyaay Nation, and all the original stewards of this land. We look forward to working in collaboration to build a more just, sustainable, and resilient future for all. Thank you. All right, a quorum is present. First up on the agenda is special presentations and instructions. We would like to give a warm welcome to Elaine Mesa, Key Account Services Manager, who is joining us virtually today to introduce herself to the CAC. Elaine.
Hey, can you hear me? Sorry.
Great. Yes.
Hi. Yes. No, I apologize. I cannot be there in person. I am dealing with some sick kiddos, but yes, super excited to be on San Diego Community Power as the new key service account manager. I come from the utility from San Diego Gas and Electric. I have about 14 years over there, ranging from programs to account manager to regulatory side with the de-energization, order institutional rulemaking, specifically focusing on access and functional needs customer. And I'm very excited to take on this new account and getting back into account managing, with focusing on rates and tariffs, and especially on our business customers. With that, I don't know if I need to turn it over to Patrick. I apologize. I was trying to log on. So I don't know if there's much more that I need to do, but I'm very excited to be here and very excited to work for San Diego Community Power, to be locally invested and working with our communities as well as our business for best intention for their clean energy climate action plans, and to help them succeed in the future of what that climate's going to look like, and focusing very strategically on that, and not only on an affordability part and equitability part, and also just the greener, cleaner, and what else is out there. And with that, I might turn it over to Patrick.
Thank you, Elaine. We really appreciate you being here, and thank you for joining the nonprofit community utility realm. Yes, and that is correct. We also have Patrick Welch, who is joining SDCP staff as the new Senior Legislative Manager. He is joining us remotely as well. Patrick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Want to echo what Elaine said in terms of wanting to be there and hope to be there soon to meet you all in person and look forward to getting to know you and learn about your communities. My name is Patrick Welch. I'm the new Senior Legislative Manager. I'm actually going to be based up in the Sacramento region. Most recently, I served as the Senior Director of Energy Policy for the California Municipal Utilities Association. So come from the public power world, also community-owned utilities. Before that, I served as a capital director for a Bay Area legislator named Jerry Hill, and then as a legislative aide for Alex Padilla when he served in the state Senate. Really looking forward again to getting to know all of you, work with the advisory committee and help SDCP deepen its relationship with partners in Sacramento. And make sure that we're contributing to thoughtful, good policy that support our goals in the San Diego region. So thank you, and thanks for having me here today.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you again, Elaine. We really appreciate you both joining the team. Lastly, but certainly not least, I'm saddened to officially communicate to the public that member Carolyn Schofield from the city of Chula Vista has resigned from the CAC effective December 11th, 2023. On behalf of the entire CAC and personally, I would like to recognize and honor Carolyn, who served as a member since May 2020, showing a lifelong passion for tireless advocacy for her community, drawing from her teaching experience to become a true sustainability champion. I believe Carolyn is on the line and would like to address the CAC one last time.
Hi, thank you, Matt. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you what a special experience that I had as part of this committee, and also, you know, as I leave wherever I am, I'll still be talking about San Diego Community Power and 100% clean energy by 2035. But what really, wait, I tried to do the video. Let me try again. There
you are.
Yes.
Yeah, better. So the power, so several things I wanted to mention is the power of working together. And that's something that has always been important to me. And this group has been so incredible with the advisory committee, the directors, the staff, and very, very fulfilling and very powerful because of it. And then finally, just seeing the JPA agreement being fulfilled, being planned, and moving forward with that is really exciting. And of course, all of the community engagement really means a lot to me as well. And it's just really been a pleasure working with all of you. And I hope that I'm sure our paths will cross again. For me, it's going to be a little while. So I have a little road ahead of me of things that I have to do to take care of myself and my health. So, and I knew it would conflict with me being able to do the things that I really like to do here. And so I wish all of you the very best and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Carolyn. Really appreciate it. Know that I still have one of your CCE flyers from the Chula Vista JPA vote in my memory box. So I really appreciate your tireless advocacy for 100% clean energy for so long, and really just want to honor that effort, time, attention, and dedication, because we wouldn't be here without you. Chula Vista would not be in this program without you.
Here, here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Carolyn. That concludes the special presentations for today. We will now move to non-agenda public comment. Written public comments may be submitted before the committee meeting and are emailed to all CAC members prior to the committee meetings and will be posted on the website at the beginning of the meeting. Megan, do we have any non-agenda public comment?
We do not.
Thank you. Are there any items to be withdrawn or reordered on the agenda?
There are not.
Thank you. We will now move to our consent calendar. As a reminder, the consent calendar contains items that can be approved as a package without discussion unless a CAC member requests that an item be removed or separate for a separate discussion and action. The CAC receives staff reports for all items on the consent agenda, and staff provided an opportunity for questions and comments during briefings prior to this meeting. Today's consent agenda includes 1, approval of the November 9th, 2023 CAC meeting minutes. 2, update on marketing, public relations, and government affairs. 3, update on customer operations. And 4, update on regulatory and legislative affairs. Megan, do we have any public comment on any of these items?
We do not.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to remove any item from the consent agenda for further discussion?
No, but I believe that December 7th.
Oh. It's, yes, correction. It's December 7th, not November 9th. December 7th. Thank you. All right, seeing no objections or requests for removal, I will now turn it over to the committee members for a motion. Also, do I need to recognize that committee member Price has joined us?
We noted it.
Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, is there a motion? I always want to recognize you.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by member Cazares, second by Vice Chair Harris.
Committee member Anderson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Price, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Emerson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Castaneda, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Sandoval, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Hammond, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Jones, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Sclafani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Secretary Cazares, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Vasilakis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with all committee members voting yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. All right, we will now move on to our regular agenda, starting with item 5. I will turn it over to staff to present this item. I will ask that before every presentation, staff clearly state their name and title for the record. We'll also ask CAC members to please refrain from asking questions and making comments until the end of the staff presentation. Would love to have a staff presentation. Oh, there they are.
Good evening, Chair. I'm Dr. Eric Washington, Chief Financial Officer here at San Diego Community Power. I just wanted to introduce this item and to introduce Aaron Liu and Tim Maglamont from the SDCP staff. We are providing an update to the 2024 rate changes that we've been working on. And with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron and Tim.
Thank you, Eric. Happy New Year's, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy to be back. We last presented an rate update in December, so we want to provide another update before we bring 2024 SDCP rates to the board for adoption. So next slide, please. I'll get started on the presentation. Just want to frame where we are today in terms of the timeline. Working backwards, we're 1 week away from the January 18th, 2024 date for the board to adopt the 2024 rates, which will be effective February 1st, 2024. Next slide, please. High-level rate mechanics. As a refresher, SDCP generation rates that would be effective February 2024 would consist of SDG&E generation rates, which has already come into effect January 1st, 2024, as well as the PCIA, the power charge and difference adjustment, which varies by customer class as well as vintage, and also consists of a franchise fee. The board adopted a rate development policy, and here we want to talk a little bit about balancing the objectives, priorities, as well as the strategic goals. So the graphic to the left on the slide shows the objectives, which are the overall goals that we're trying to achieve in terms of cost recovery, simplicity, transparency, with cost shifting and moving towards cost of service. And the priorities in this process of rate development as well as rate setting is to continue to achieve our reserve targets, maintain competitiveness, maintain stability, as well as equity. I'm gonna turn it over briefly to Tim to talk a little bit more about strategic goals.
And hi, Chair Vasilakis, Vice Chairs, committee members, Timothy Magabat, Senior Finance Manager at San Diego Community Power. Getting to one of the key factors in regards to rate development that Aaron referenced a bit earlier. The board did adopt strategic goals to try to build SDCP reserves. And just kind of highlighting those a little bit, we have hit the strategic goal to hit 90 days cash on hand this fiscal year, which is a major accomplishment. But I will say there are a few reserve goals, especially in regards to rate setting and what we're going to be considering that we haven't quite yet hit, and we'll get into a little bit more detail in a second. But we do have a goal to try to get to 180 days cash on hand. We're close, but we're not yet there. After that happens, we do want to try to pursue an investment grade credit rating, which opens up a lot of possibilities for the agency. And then the other thing that we also want to get to is a rate stabilization reserve so that we can try to get potentially to one rate that's more stable for the customer. And that provides just a better customer experience in regards to our rates. So kind of just with our strategic goals, we're there, we're not quite there yet, and that's a big factor with the rate setting. With that, I'll turn back to Eric.
Next slide, please. We talked about this before in November, December, but focusing on equity as being one of the objectives and goals of the rate development policy. Equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates the same exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. And because SDCP's rate consists of different vintages of the PCIA, in order to maintain an equitable value proposition across all customers, traffication of rates will have to be maintained. So we are still developing 3 sets of rates in this cycle as well. Next slide, please. And looking at SDG generation rates, which came into effect January 1st, 2024, this is an update to the table that we provided in November as well as in December. So SDG rates, system average generation rate decreased by 23% as of January 1st compared to 2023 rates. SDG stated that the primary driver of the decrease in the generation rates is that SDG is forecasting lower costs of purchasing electricity in 2024, as well as actualization of balancing accounts, and also a projected increase in load or energy usage. Next slide, please. So I'll turn it back over to Tim to talk a little bit more about where SDCP is in terms of our energy projection and strategy.
Exactly. So diving into the details a little bit here with SDG rates. So we do know that in the energy commodity market, prices have been coming down recently, and you can see that in that chart at the top. And so, getting to what SDG was saying in their advice letter with rates going down because of projected energy prices going down, that's kind of what they're seeing in that chart with energy prices going down. For SDCP, we're constantly procuring energy. We have a hedging strategy in our energy risk management policy that says that we will try to hedge the market as much as possible, which means in 2023, we are buying energy in 2024, which potentially might be at higher prices there. But right now we are also still continuing to procure energy because we're procuring for risk and constantly buying rather than trying to buy in the open market. And so we have bought at higher prices last year. We are now buying lower at the lower prices this year. And I think SDG&E, just per their advice letter, is seeing some energy prices going down, which is how they're able to take advantage and lower their rates. So on the expense side for SDCP, energy makes up 95% of our expenses, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now on the expense side. Next slide. So looking at the revenue side for SDCP, again, as we referenced earlier, one of our main goals on the revenue side for SDCP is to set rates so that we can get to that 180-day reserve, 180 days cash on hand reserve mark. And then once you do that, then you can get a credit rating, which opens up so many doors for the agency. You could do things, for example, like get better deals on power purchase agreements, because instead of not having a credit, once you have your credit rating, then it looks much more favorable to somebody who's trying to sell energy. So you don't have to post so much collateral potentially, and the negotiations could lead to lower rates. A lot of other things you could do when you get that credit rating. You could leverage funds from the federal government a little bit more easily. You could issue debt and do a lot of cool things for the community. All reasons why we want to build that 100 days cash on hand reserve target. And it's one reason, and one thing that we're laser focused on in regards to setting rates and the recommendation we'll ultimately bring to the board. Next slide. Diving into the details a little bit on reserves and the kind of the revenue side here a bit. So this time last year, when the board set rates, we were at $57 million in terms of reserves. Since then, just based on the decision that the board made back in January, we've built that reserve pot from 57 million up to 419 million. So I think the agency has done a good job with the decision that we've made with trying to get to that reserve target and just being conservative. But I will say we aren't quite yet in our goal. I mean, you can see I think the analogy I used with somebody earlier was, we drove the ball 95 yards. We're at the 5-yard line. We're ready to score the touchdown, but we're not quite there. And so, when we set rates, and as we're looking at it right now, one of the things we're going to look at is trying to get to that $500 million reserve target, or at least maintaining our reserves. Next slide. So kind of just to sum up where we're at the moment, we do know that from SDG&E's advice letter that they filed on December 29, that on average they'll decrease the rates by 23%. We'll maintain application so that we have consistency across our rate classes and customers. 180 days cash on hand with reserves is going to be a major thing that we're looking at as we make recommendations for rates. And then ultimately next week, we hope to bring a recommendation to the board. So with that, Chair Vasilakis, that concludes our remarks. I'll turn it over to you.
Right. Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Great. All right, well, I'll now turn it over to the CAC members for comments. And as a reminder, each member will have up to 5 minutes to ask questions and make comments. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Committee member Johns?
You mentioned trying to improve our credit rating. What is it now and what is the goal?
I'll respond to that. Thanks, John. So we do not currently have a credit rating. So the 180 days target that Tim alluded to would put us in a window or in a position to start pursuing a credit rating. So it's really the timing that's important for us. So at what point can we get to that target would also determine at what point we could actually start the process of pursuing that credit rating. Thank you for the question.
Committee member Anderson?
You indicated that energy procurement rates were falling. Was that true both for fossil fuels and for renewables, or were they disproportionate in some way?
So I'll lead in and then Tim, feel free to chime in. So the slide that was presented was pretty much pointing to natural gas prices, which is what energy prices have historically tracked. So we haven't had, we don't track, or we don't have visibility on the fossil fuel market. However, we could do some research and come back to you with that information if you'd like.
But are renewables different than the natural gas in terms of the degree to which they've fallen?
Not necessarily. So we've seen, and I know this because we report out in the treasurer's report, we've seen a rising environment for renewable energy costs. And so it's starting to really be important for us to keep focus on that so that we can, figure out ways how we might be able to generate savings. So that credit rating that we referred to, building reserves ties directly into that. Thank you for the question.
Committee Member Hammond?
Hi, thank you. I was wondering, has SDG&E ever decreased rates this much? I know when SDCP was transitioning residential customers, they artificially decreased rates, but curious if they've ever cited decreases for the same reason, or if they've ever done a decrease this high, or if this is like somehow strategically planned to hurt SDCP.
I'll take a start at that, and then Aaron, maybe you have some additional insight. I don't know that we can definitively say that their great activities are pointed to harm us. Just looking at the history, and I think there was a slide on this, and Aaron can probably speak to this more eloquently than I can. Just the history of rate activities by San Diego Gas and Electric. So Aaron, do you want to elaborate further?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I just want to echo Eric's comment. There's just been a lot of rate changes over the years, so I cannot definitely say if there has been a rate decrease or not, but I can say there have been frequent rate changes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Any other questions or comments? Committee Member Emerson?
Yeah, I just want to, similar to Peter Anderson's question, and I want to get a clarification again. The diagram you showed us was just focused on natural gas energy? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that was a graph with natural gas, but then there is a really strong correlation for the natural gas and energy market. Yes.
So yes, I would be interesting to know the comparison on costs of renewable energies in recent times versus fossil fuels. So if you have that information available later, share that with some of us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Committee Member Price?
Yes, if we do decide to pursue the line of questioning or thought of the rate changes and how they what affects them, I would hope that we wouldn't just look at, the industry and why the rate has changed, but look at, regional or local or global conditions on why that rate was changed, right? It was kind of stated that, are they doing it because of us, right? At this large size? Well, there may be a connection between when they do it and something that happens outside of their purview, which is why the rate changed in a significant direction. And, I know that what I'm saying is a lot to put on your plates to do right now. So maybe if you get an intern at some point or a volunteer that would actually, be willing to go down this rabbit hole, I think it would be some very interesting information to figure out why, when, and how. So I didn't really have a question, just statement.
Thank you for those remarks.
This is for comments.
Vice Chair Harris?
Oh, I just wanted to know about changes in energy prices. Summer is typically higher energy prices, and how does SDCP account for the difference in the season, the prices in the season in setting the rates?
So I'll start with.
Well, you should be sitting over there. You hiding over there.
Yes, we all know.
But anyway, that's a great point. So typically, the way San Diego Community Power has historically approached seasonal rates is we, in our rate development structure, is to anticipate prices for both seasons in one rate setting action. Is typically how we've approached it. Does that answer your question? Thank you. I don't know, Tim, Aaron, if you've got anything you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, just to add a little more color, as Dr. Washington mentioned, yes, we are trying to set rates for summer and winter. With SDG&E's device layer that they filed, they have also set their rates for summer and winter. And typically, both us and SDG&E have higher summer rates and winter rates because it costs us more in some extent. And so you'll see different kind of rates in terms of summer and winter, kind of similar to what SDG&E published in their price layer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I'm looking forward to seeing your proposed recommendations to the board. I understand that there's definitely a strong emphasis here on reaching our threshold in terms of achieving that bond rating, which is definitely a priority. But it leaves me wondering in terms of like what those recommendations may be in the context of these decreases, as in seeing if our rates end up being higher than SDG&E's this year. So I appreciate the thorough approach that you all are taking in terms of elevating this. And I'll be very curious to dig into those numbers when they come out later. Because that would result in a lot of careful conversations that we may need to have with community members in terms of explaining like our rates are higher and our value proposition is now X, which staff has done an amazing job of elevating other wonderful things that we provide community in addition to competitive rates. Thank you. Only comment. All right. That closes out the item, I think, unless anyone has any other questions. Wonderful. So the recommendation is to receive and file the presentation on the update on the 2024 projected rate changes. This isn't really a motion, right? Great. All right, move on to 6. Update on flex load strategy. For this item, we have staff both calling in, or no, we don't just have staff calling in. So I'll now turn it over to that team member to introduce themselves and provide the presentation.
Hi, good evening. This is Tim Treadwell, Senior Program Manager on the programs team working with Constantuli. Calling in from Portland today, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm sick with flu, maybe COVID, so there will be sneezing and
no apologies.
Other things happening while I present. Next slide, please. So we've been working on a flex load strategy on the programs team with the goal of developing a portfolio of resources that we can use to optimize customer load to directly reduce the bills of program participants and ultimately reduce our cost structures at lower rates for the broader community. The goal of this work will be achieved through a short-term and a long-term objective. In the near term, we've been assessing the market, the technology space, vendors, and understanding opportunities to incorporate flexible load into our program base. And over the long term, we want to operationalize this plan and develop a program portfolio that supports our operational objectives outlined in the overall goal. Next slide. So core to this concept is understanding flexibility. A lot of different terms are used for the same topic here: load management, demand flexibility, and they all kind of talking about the same thing, which is our ability to adjust power consumption or production to meet the operational needs of customers or the grid. The two main ways we do this is through shifting load and shedding load. Next slide. So flex load has emerged as a really important aspect of California energy policy. It has a number of benefits for the policymakers in the grid. So load flexibility allows us to align customer demand with when clean energy supply is available. So as we continue to decarbonize the grid, we can match that up and consume that energy as needed. It also allows us to add new load without triggering the need for additional generation or grid infrastructure investments, keeping costs low. And finally, as we're dealing with more extreme weather events, flexibility allows us to maintain grid stability during heat waves and fires. So given that state regulators, actually, if you go back to the previous slide, state regulators are the CEC and the California Public Utilities Commission have a number of regulatory activities they're working through right now that are incorporating flexibility into different elements of energy policy, everything from code work in Title 24 to appliance standards and a flexible load management standard, which actually governs load serving entities like us. And the CEC recently doubled the load shifting capacity goal for the state. And in doing so, they kind of created this 3-tier framework with load modifying resources, supply side resources, and incremental emergency resources. Next slide. So how do we use this at SDCP? Load flexibility delivers value in 2 main ways. It helps us with energy procurement costs, so we can move load to parts of the day when electricity supply is cheaper. It also helps us with resource adequacy. So by reducing our peak on the front end, shifting load away from peak periods, we actually reduce our obligation to the CEC and the CPUC over the long term. So we have a lower procurement requirement on the back end. Next slide. So this is a snapshot of what's happening across the state as of Q3 of 2023. At the time of pulling this data, there were about 40 active and planned projects across the state of CCAs, and they varied from daily load shifting projects to efficiency to event-based DR and real-time pricing pilots. But the real takeaway here is that the CCAs are really embracing this tool as a way to support customer energy use and power cost and to reduce overall operation cost. Next slide. So we get flexibility from DERs, distributed energy resources, and I won't read this to you, but I think that the important concept here is that distributed energy resources are interconnected on the distribution system. They're customer-sided resources, so they're either at the customer premise behind the customer's meter, or they're interconnected to that portion of the electrical system on the bottom right, and they're pretty broad in what's included in that category, everything from electric vehicles, solar, to smart thermostats and water heaters. Next slide. And DERs are ubiquitous. So they exist in all customer classes, and there's opportunity for us to engage everything from individual homeowners, small businesses, all the way up to our large institutional customers. And we will be developing programs and offerings that do just that. Next slide. So as we begin to launch our program portfolio, and you all have seen a number of these activities presented to you, including the REN, we're looking for opportunities to incorporate flex load concepts into each of the program silos to help build that large resource base, which we can use to drive operational efficiency. Next slide. And we're doing that through, excuse me, we're doing that through these integration strategies. So looking at program design concepts and focusing our resources and our efforts on specific products that enable flexibility, incentive designs that bring customers in and keep them engaged over the long term to work with us and allow us to control their resources. We have a number of direct installation program elements coming up, and we want to make sure that when contractors are in the field, they are installing and commissioning and enrolling these devices in the controls platform. The legal terms and conditions that govern these programs, we want to be mindful of those and how they need to evolve over time to make sure that we maintain assets under our control, and our technical assistance delivery, so dealing with contractors and local governments to ensure that they understand the opportunity and help us be advocates for this technology in the field. Next slide. One of the main concepts around load flexibility is a distributed energy resource management system. So a DERMS is a software platform that takes in various input signals like market data, our load forecast, weather, customer assets and preferences, and then creates the ability to an opportunity to optimize those resources to achieve the operational outcomes and goals of SDCP. So this software layer is a critical element of a load flex program, and we will be pursuing this. I think one of the things to know about DERMS is that this is an emerging technology, and there are a lot of different versions of this with various operational characteristics. So as we go through our procurement process, we want to make sure that we understand the specific requirements and outcomes that we're driving towards, and we purchase the software that's needed for our unique situation. Next slide. So what we're proposing in this strategy is a 3-phase approach. So we will be launching a DERMS in mid-2024 to control basic residential assets. This will go out of the gate with a relatively small deployment, so we can get up to speed on the programs team, working with power services. There's a res battery program that's being stood up, which we'll keep as an independently operating unit for the time being. And we're planning to launch a managed charging program as well, which has its own software controls architecture. Next slide. Over time, we'll roll the battery program under the unified DERM system, which will help us get more value for customers and do a better optimization of energy consumption and dispatch while keeping managed charging separate. And then finally, in the 3rd phase, next slide, we will roll that all under one centralized platform. And we're anticipating this will happen around 2026, depending on market developments. Next slide. And this just gives you a sense of the timeline and how the different programs are working together. The things that I'd like to point out here are the orange clouds on the bottom portion of the table. These are the 2 software procurements that we're anticipating to happen in 2024. We're beginning engagement with consultants now to support our RFP, our procurement process, which we anticipate occurring in Q2 of 2024, and ultimately contracting with a software vendor in fiscal year 24-25. Next slide.
Thank you, Timothy. Appreciate that presentation. Megan, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not.
All right, I will now turn over to CAC members for comments. Member Cazares.
Timothy, I just wanted to say thank you for sticking through that while you're sick. You made something quite complicated very simplified for us. I think you did a really excellent job making it digestible. So thank you. And I'm excited to see the rollout of these programs.
Thank you.
Community Member Emerson.
Yes, Tim, thanks again for the presentation. Yes, I thought it was pretty easy to understand. There's a lot of details, of course. And one of the diagrams you showed residential batteries, and you were talking about the DERM. So would this be trying to utilize the residential batteries to add more energy during the peak time? Is that would be how that would be implemented?
Yeah, my colleague Emily is managing that and will be presenting on it. But I can say briefly that the res battery program will be used to shift load and ultimately discharge batteries during peak when the economics are beneficial for the customer. And that will be a standalone program initially, and we're hoping that over time it can be merged with a broader flex load portfolio so that we can do things like preheat water in your thermostat, or preheat water in your water heater, or adjust your thermostat set points while we discharge your battery. So we're minimizing on-site load while we're pushing kilowatt hours back onto the grid to maximize the size and value to customers and to the grid.
Thank you.
Committee Member Price?
I was at a conference yesterday and today, and I learned of the safety concern about going behind the meter, whether it's residential, commercial, or whatever, and actually intruding into people's homes with their water heater or stove or heater or whatever, and that there's a grave safety concern that's growing, that programs like this allow for basically burglary if they're allowed to get into people's homes. There's ways to get into their computer, get into their Alexa, get into a bunch of other stuff. And I thought it was rather interesting when I heard it, but then they explained that Target had a mass robbery through their air conditioning unit because it was connected to their Wi-Fi that was using some type of sustainability type thing. So are we looking at concerns, or are we interested in an interface that interfaces with a client, especially residential is my concern, without intruding into their house? Is there a software that doesn't connect outside of their house that can actually facilitate load shifting or load sharing or whatever it needs to be without actually going into my house, into my battery, and taking energy, because it affords the opportunity to get into other electrical appliances in my house, whether it's a alarm system or lock and unlock the front door or whatever.
Yeah, well, I have a couple thoughts on that. First is, I think a lot of the opportunity here are for flex load assets that customers already own. So, for example, there are hundreds of thousands of smart thermostats installed in our service territory where customers have put them in and connected to the app and are using them on a daily basis. And this flex load program that we would overlay on top of that is working with the thermostat manufacturer to send and receive signals to operationalize those HVAC systems for the benefit of the customer's usage and for the grid. So we wouldn't be creating another kind of point of entry, but rather using the approved pathway through the vendor cloud to optimize the signal, the same way that the customer would use their smart thermostat app on their phone. With all of this, having two-factor identification and good password hygiene is critical, and that's less of a program. It's less of a program intervention and more of kind of education for customers generally on ways to protect their resources in the home. With regards to using an input through a smart water heater or a smart thermostat and creating an opening or a threat surface for other assets in the home, they're generally one-to-one connections, and we would be interacting again with those assets through their respective manufacturer cloud system. So Bradford White down to a water heater, or a Ream cloud system down to a water heater versus Google or Ecobee down to a thermostat. The signals don't generally mix in the home. They're kind of one-to-one pathways that go up. So there's a pretty minimal risk for the customer in that sense. The Department of Energy and some of the national labs have been doing cybersecurity studies to look at the potential hazards to the grid if there was a broad scale denial of service or other kind of coordinated dispatch of these devices, hundreds of thousands of devices all at once, either turning off or turning on to have impacts on the voltage or congestion of a distribution circuit. Those are conceptually problems that could occur, and they're being studied by the labs and by the Department of Energy. But at this point, the scale of what we're talking about, I think, is pretty minimal. And the state of the art around security of these systems is kind of moving at a pace that I'm personally pretty comfortable with as our programs will grow. The awareness and understanding and active management of that threat is also growing.
So what you're saying is that we're not, this DERMS program is not actually putting a device into somebody's home or somebody's business, but it's actually utilizing what's already there. So if a client doesn't have a hot water heater, we're not concerned about the hot water heater, but if they do have an electrified hot water heater and it's sending signals already, we're just going to utilize the signals that it's already using in and out of the home.
Yeah, so if they have a grid enabled water heater already, we would want to enroll that water heater. If they had an old gas water heater or an old electric resistance water heater and wanted to upgrade, we would encourage them to purchase a flex load capable device and enroll it. The California actually has a requirement for water heaters, as does Oregon and Washington and the Northwest. Generally, the grid connected version of the device is becoming the preferred version of the device. So most thermostats are going to be grid connected. Newer models of water heaters will as well. So the technology is already being installed and purchased, and we're kind of drafting off of that and enrolling it to support customers' energy management.
So when you use the term enrolling it, are we enrolling it or are we utilizing their enrollment with whoever built the water heater? And we're asking permission to use their enrollment with them so that we can utilize that information.
Generally, when you purchase a grid enabled device, you or your contractor installs the hardware, and then the customer will connect it to the manufacturer's cloud system so that they can use their apps. They can do remote control of the device.
Okay.
Your water heater, your thermostat, think of it like that, your electric vehicle. And then we reach out to the customer and ask permission to send and receive signals on their behalf to that device. So they have a secure authorization where they would allow us to receive information on the device's performance and send signals to optimize it for our use cases and program needs.
Committee Member Anderson?
Oh, myself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought you said Emerson, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
We have similar names. Now, we're just poor old country folks out in East County, and we hear a lot about the Internet of Things and grid-enabled devices and such. Can you give me any sense among San Diego Community Power customers, how many people have any grid-enabled devices on their system? I don't know anybody that has such a thing.
Yeah, so I used to live in Mesa before I relocated. So I'm familiar with the poor country folk out there. I at the time had an EV and a smart thermostat. And this was, I moved up to the Northwest in 2016. The adoption of those technologies has grown rapidly. There's hundreds of thousands of EVs. The last data I looked at, there was somewhere north of 300,000 or 400,000 smart thermostats in the service territory. I think there's
San Diego County.
Yeah, yes. I think there's a pretty big resource base that we could tap into before we even begin to push customers to adopt new devices.
Wow, news to me.
Any other questions? Oh, member.
I was hoping you could discuss how the DERMS selection and procurement is being coordinated, maybe with SDG&E and any DERM system they may be contemplating and their distribution system operator?
Yeah, it's a really great question. We actually met with SDG&E this week to talk about that. I think in the near term, we will be procuring a DERMS and using it for those use cases that were outlined in the presentation, which are energy management and resource adequacy. Over time, I personally feel like there's a large opportunity to mobilize those resources to support distribution operations, and I would hope that there's collaboration with SDG&E on that front. That's the way that vertically integrated utilities are operating. You start with wholesale optimization, and then you move down to distribution optimization to support feeder congestion and voltage issues and other power quality issues at the local level. California is unique in that we're a load serving entity kind of apart from the distribution operational scheme, but there's definitely value there. And Colin has expressed an interest, the program team expressed an interest in supporting SDG&E in that. So we're going to be willing collaborators in the future if they would like to do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Sclafani. Committee Member Hammond?
I received a notice from SDG&E that they're requesting, or it sounds like they're getting EV data from the DMV, and I was wondering if they're going to share that with SDCP, or if that's something SDCP will be able to have access to.
I saw that same letter. I don't know, to be honest, but it would be useful for us to have it.
I feel like if SDG&E gets it, like I rather have SDCP get it. If we can help advocate for that, please let me know.
It's a good point. Thank you.
What kind of data is that specifically?
It looks like they're
just generally all EV data, or is it broke down into some kind of categories?
I believe it was vehicle registration data that they received from the DMV.
I think that would probably show the locations too.
Yeah, you said it's in the service address. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Sandoval?
Yeah, I just have a question regarding, is there any sort of SDCP or government programs that incentivize people to upgrade to these type of things? Because looking at the list of the terms, EV chargers, you need an EV car, pool warmer, you need a pool, a smart thermometer, you need air conditioning. That's things that are financially not accessible for a lot of our communities, especially us people down in IB. Is there any programs that are active that we can educate the public on to incentivize those type of things or make them accessible?
Yeah, so our plan for 2024 is really to set up the IT systems and get staff up to speed on how to use these software assets. In 2025, when the REN launches, and we're hoping that the CEC building electrification programs launch, there will be income targeted direct install programs operating in the service territory. And those are primarily efficiency programs, but our goal is that when those efficiency programs launch and we begin retrofitting measures in the homes of customers who have not traditionally had access to those resources, we'll not only put in the new device, but we'll enroll that device in the program and then help that customer manage their bill. So what we're laying out in this strategy is less about the specific program delivery model, and it's more about setting things in motion so that when the program deliveries come online, that we've thought through the points of integration and we're ready to engage the customer and get the device enrolled and start managing it for their benefit.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great question, and I really look forward to the programs team working with you in the future on that. We can find equitable strategies for advancing these technologies in communities of concern. And any other questions or comments? Timothy, thank you so much for sticking it out with us and answering all our questions and taking that extra time. Please go to bed. Really appreciate it. Please get well soon.
Thank you. Have a good
All
night.
right, this is a receive and file. We're moving forward to item 7, Community and Equity Ad Hoc Ended Committee Report. I will turn it over to Vice Chair Harris to provide the report.
Thank you. Over its duration, the Community and Equity Ad Hoc Committee met a total of 6 times. The committee worked closely with SDCP staff to analyze and provide feedback on the outreach and promotion of existing and upcoming customer energy service offerings. We also made ongoing recommendation on community engagement and public outreach strategies, and we helped develop guiding principles for its leadership to assess community engagement and outreach efforts associated with the power procurement process. I wanted to recognize the members on the committee. They included Eddie Price, Aida Castaneda, Lauren Cazares, myself, and initially Tara Hammond. Specific topics that we discussed included the language access policy, solar for our communities, the summer tips for targeted social and digital display campaign, energy proposal evaluation criteria, CAC educational presentations, which we look forward to in upcoming, and the 2024 CAC work plan. And finally, revisions to the CAC scope of work, which is on the agenda tonight. So I do want to note that the meetings were impacted by attendance and conflicts from volunteers with the recurring times, which is why members worked with staff to change the meeting time about halfway through the process. So the Community and Equity Committee hosted its last meeting January 8th, that was Monday, to provide suggestions and recommendations on the work plan. That concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Right, any committee member comments? I'll just say thank you all for your service on this committee. Very important. I appreciate all the hard work. Thank you, Vice Chair Harris. Very much appreciated your leadership in this space. All right, another file and receive. We will move on to item 9 or 8. I will turn it over to committee member Emerson to provide the report.
Good evening, and yes, in our program ad hoc committee met about 4 times. And we went over a lot of the things that San Diego staff were working on, energy, customer energy service offerings as well, the implementation of the community power plan. We talked about green tariffs and solar for our communities, energy, regional energy network included, energy education and online marketplace, the net billing tariffs, residential solar and energy storage. These were all discussed, and how do we move forward? How do we implement them the best? And how can we bring these programs to each individual area we represent? We're one of our focuses. Yeah, I want to recognize the members, Anna Webb, Matthew Vasilakis, Peter Anderson, and myself, and Carolyn Schofield, who I should have mentioned earlier. When I first started, she was very instrumental in bringing me up on board on what everything was going on with San Diego Community Power. So not only did she help get it started in her community and voted on, but she helped me personally. So I appreciate Carol. I'll have to talk to her later about that. But I think that all of these programs, as they get ready to implement, if the San Diego Community Power staff can reach out to us, how it could be implemented in our individual regions and cities, and we'll try to help move forward with those implementation and make sure that communities are aware of these opportunities to help them improve their energy efficiency and reduce energy costs. So that sums up. Any comments or questions?
Before then, Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Thank you. Yeah, any CAC member comments? Well, thank you, committee member Emerson, for your leadership as well. Appreciate all the hard work and dedication on this ad hoc committee. We will now receive and file and move on to regular agenda item 9, discussion of the creation of a new ad hoc committee, and I will turn it over to staff to provide the update.
That's gonna be me. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name, for the record, is Xiomali Crespo, Community Engagement Manager here at SDCP, and I will provide you with some parameters to guide our discussion today. So with the Programs and Community and Equity Ad Hoc Committees sunsetting at the beginning of January, so hosting their last meetings this last week, the CAC now has an opportunity to discuss the need for any other ad hoc committees at this time and approve any should it choose to. As part of current CAC operating procedures, the CAC may create ad hoc committees to address issues more in depth outside of CAC meetings and bring findings or recommendations back to the full CAC. Ad hoc committees are temporary committees appointed for a very specific purpose, such as updating the CAC work plan or providing feedback on specific customer programs. The CAC may establish temporary ad hoc advisory committees that are A, composed of less than a quorum of the CAC, B, have no continuing subject matter jurisdiction, and C, have no meeting schedule fixed by motion or other formal action of the CAC. Such temporary ad hoc committees are not subject to Brown Act noticing and meeting requirements, and unlike the CAC, which is a permanent standing committee with defined responsibilities, ad hoc committees are created so that CAC members with the appropriate expertise and or experience may voluntarily provide feedback to SDCP staff on key issues and policies that we're working on. Ad hoc committees have no decision-making authority and serve in an advisory capacity to staff, the board, and the CAC at large. And I do want to know that this will not be the only opportunity to create an ad hoc committee should the CAC move or desired to create one later down the line, as the CAC can create ad hoc committees relevant to an individual agenda item, even when the creation of an ad hoc committee for that subject is not specifically agendized. But we're hoping that by bringing it forward as a standalone item at this time, we will be able to proactively receive feedback on efforts we're already getting ready to roll out. So following conversations at our programs ad hoc committee that, member Emerson just gave a report on, staff has identified a need to provide timely and ongoing feedback that is specific to the development and promotion of our customer offerings specifically. Specifically, staff is suggesting for the consideration of this committee to create a community grants ad hoc committee, which would be expected to meet once ahead of our second round of community grants being promoted next month. To be clear, staff is currently not recommending a discussion on the community grant program during this meeting, but during a separate ad hoc meeting if there is interest. Any volunteers who become members of this ad hoc committee should adhere to our recently approved conflict of interest and ethical conduct policy. So should the CAC decide to form this or any other ad hoc committees, staff will work with the CAC volunteers selected to set meeting cadence, procedures, objectives, and a very defined scope of work. That concludes my presentation, and let the discussion begin.
Great. Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Ready? Before I turn it over to the CAC members for comments and a potential motion, I want to remind the members that this is not, that it is not within the scope of this item to have conversations about subjects that are not on the agenda, and that suggestions must be kept short and not substantive. I will ask legal counsel to support me in identifying what those when that occurs. So with that, any comments? Committee member Anderson?
More of a question than a comment. Zia, when you're talking about a grant program, are you talking about obtaining grants from other agencies for use by San Diego Community Power? Or are you talking about grant dissemination to organizations that might use some of our resources to implement new programs?
Thank you for the question. It would be very much the latter. So you should already be familiar with this program. This is our community grants program that is part of actually our programs team, and that we provided an update around this time last year.
Thanks.
Committee Member Johns?
I was just wondering if this is the only opportunity, can we, if an idea strikes, can we form an ad hoc committee at some future meeting?
So the committee can form an ad hoc committee regarding, let's say there's an agenda item that comes before you in a future month and you say, it'd be really good for us to send this down, create an ad hoc committee, talk about it for a month or two and have them report back. The committee can do that later in the year based on that agenda item. If you have an idea for an ad hoc committee that is not related to something that is on the agenda, that's the type of thing you could come to CO, ask for something to be put on the agenda for a discussion about creating that ad hoc committee to be put on, and that's another way that you could do it.
So if I understand, it's a process where it has to be agendized and then I'll say a 2 to 3 month, I guess, due diligence period to establish.
It doesn't have to be 2 to 3 months to on the establishment, but just the nature of ad hoc committees is that they are ultimately temporary. So however long that ad hoc committee needs to meet to come back with its recommendation or advice or whatever the issue may be that committee is working on, but it can be formed under an agenda item. Either something that's already on the agenda or something that a CAC member requests on the agenda, and that's.
Oh, so next month, if there's an agenda item and I think, hey, man, we need a ad hoc committee for this, I can, well, since it's agendized, but so if it's an agenda item that's just like giving us advice, so there's no motion required for that agenda item, there's got to be something that happens in between the way I'm thinking about this. I'm sorry to.
No, that's okay. Yes. So if an item is on the agenda, even if the agenda, if staff didn't foresee that the committee might want to create an ad hoc committee about that item, and therefore it doesn't say ad hoc, let's take rates, for example. The rate item was on there. If the ad hoc committee was interested in creating, if this committee was interested in creating an ad hoc committee to come back and report on rates, you could have done that under that agenda item because it relates to the substance of what's on the agenda. I hope that helps clear things up.
Okay,
it's a tool. Ad hoc committees can be used as a tool to help you dig deeper and maybe come back on an item.
Or relatedly, we could send ZO an agenda item in advance of the meeting, proposing a particular ad hoc committee or investigation or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks.
Committee Member Emerson?
And CEO, you mentioned this about grants and the next phase coming forward, and I chatted with you briefly before the meeting, but we're all interested in what happened to the other grants. A report from San Diego Community Power, folks who were working with all those grants, what were the lessons learned, so that if we're going to move forward with new grants, we can all understand how they work and maybe how we can improve on them, and what our focus should be for future grants. But I would like to, for a future agenda item, to include a report on what happened with the other grants. What were the synergies? What did they share with each other? And what did we learn from those the implementation of the grants? If you could put that on a future agenda. Thank you.
Secretary Cazares?
This is not a well thought out idea for an ad hoc committee, just something that came to mind. Something related to getting community-based organizations and small businesses to enroll in San Diego Community Power and opt up to Power 100. So I don't know if that's something that might interest folks, but it's definitely something that interests us in the city of La Mesa. But I think that would be something cool for us to focus on for our communities.
Any other comments or questions? I will say I do like the idea of creating this ad hoc committee for the grants that are coming out. I think that would be a really important opportunity for folks on this committee to engage in that and support staff in that effort. So I'd be interested if anyone would be interested in motioning to create that ad hoc committee.
Which one?
I'll make a motion to create a grants ad hoc committee. That will establish meetings with members of this CAC.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Vice Chair Harris. Second by Committee Member Castaneda. Clerk, can we please call the roll?
Committee member Anderson, how do you vote?
Point of order, on this motion, is there not opportunity for discussion prior to a vote?
Yes, yes, sorry. Discussion?
Quick recovery. Well, one of the questions that arises on this is what Mr. Emerson was just talking about, and several other people have commented on previously. What do we know about the grants that we've already provided? It would seem that that would be a necessary prerequisite prior to the formation of such a committee.
I don't know if we can dig into that piece. It's not agendized, correct?
Yeah.
No, I mean, if the committee wants to consider the lack of that information as part of your decision whether or not to do this, but there can't be an extended discussion on that.
I will vote no on this motion because I don't know if this has been a success at all. And I think this committee as a whole ought to ascertain that before we put together an ad hoc committee to consider doing more of that. So.
Comment received.
If I may just add really quickly that staff is planning to bring forward an update on our grants program in general. I believe that we have not received the reports that are required as part of this grant, so we would need some time to kind of collect those and assess, what are some lessons learned, where we could move forward. I think that one of the things that we're hoping by suggesting by forming this committee, this ad hoc committee, is to provide input on the priorities that we should place within the next round of grants. And we're trying to get, just keep into consideration and the timeliness of this effort by doing it before we actually open up the application for the second time around.
Okay, to shape and inform. Member Sandoval, sorry, Member Castaneda.
I appreciate Committee Member Cazares' point about creating a committee relating to Power 100. I know there's a lot of members in National City that like to exercise that. At what point do we then schedule that discussion? Or could we vote on that tonight? Yeah.
No,
No?
it's not agendized.
We would agendize it? No, well, it is the creation of ad hoc committees.
Any ad hoc is on the table, I guess, right now. The way that this was organized is for the creation of ad hocs.
How many we can?
But not until we've dispensed with the grants committee.
There is a motion on the floor regarding the grants committee. Correct.
Chair, we have Committee Member Hammond with her hand up.
Committee Member Hammond.
Thank you. I will just say the reports were due, I believe they go to San Diego Foundation less than a month ago. So I'm not sure if SDCP has received them, but hopefully we can review that information soon. In regards to the chair's motion, I support it, but in our briefing this week, we did discuss that council would specify if anything's a conflict of interest. And since this wasn't something that they knew we were going to bring forward, I run a nonprofit and I would be interested in potentially applying for future grants. So I'm going to abstain on the motion. Only I don't think it'd be a conflict, just supporting it, but I just wanted to provide that context.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammond. Other comments, questions? Member Johns.
I actually served on, along with staff, on evaluating grants. And it was a very interesting and enlightening experience. And I just want to sort of state my support. Committee member Anderson stated his objection to not really knowing results from last year, but again, as was stated by Seal, I have the feeling that having the grant ad hoc now would prevent some of this present feeling that maybe we didn't get a full accounting of how the last one went. So I just want to express my support for it before we vote.
Thank you. Member Johns. Any other questions or comments before we call a vote? I guess I just think this is important infrastructure for us to have as we embark on another round of grants. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us to provide this type of input in another forum to SDCP staff to consider moving forward. I also want to recognize that if these reports were submitted only recently, it's going to take some time to distill that information. And we can have more conversations, I think, at that ad hoc committee level to understand how best to put a process in place to make folks comfortable in the future. So those are my comments.
I just wanted to add that these progress reports that were submitted last month to the foundation, the projects aren't completed. So this is an interim report from the grantees on the progress they've made with their grant funds. So, you know, I don't know how much we can evaluate the success of the initial round, but I do think it's important to establish an ad hoc committee that can inform the second round.
Yeah, this is interesting. Committee member Hammond.
Just a very good point, David. The funds, I believe, have to be dispersed by April, and second reporting is due till isn't due until June. So there is some time before we will hear back. So I'm still in support of this moving forward tonight.
Any other questions or comments?
One question. The ad hoc committee, is this required to meet in person or can this be virtual meetings?
Because it would be ad hoc and not subject to the Brown Act, it could be virtual.
Great. Any other comments or questions before we call a vote? All right, please clerk.
Committee member Anderson,
Nay.
committee member Price,
Abstain.
committee member Emerson,
Yeah, I think it's too early to form a committee when we haven't heard what happened with the prior grants, and so I will say nay at this time.
committee member Webb. Oh, sorry, she's. Committee member Sandoval.
Abstain.
Committee member Hammond.
Abstain.
Committee member Johns.
Aye.
Committee member Sclafani.
Aye.
Committee member, Secretary Cazares.
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris.
Aye.
Chair Vasilakis.
Aye.
You didn't mention me.
I'm sorry. Committee member Castaneda.
Aye.
Give me 1 second while I calculate this.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
That's gotta be the most complicated vote we've taken.
First time ever.
I need to look at.
On a unanimous vote, yes.
Oh, whether the abstains affect quorum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
1 second. So the motion passes with 6 voting yes, 2 no's, and 3 abstentions.
I could not hear the tally stated.
So the motion carries with 6 committee members voting yes, 2 committee members voting no, and 3 committee members abstaining.
All right.
Cliffhanger.
Well done.
volunteers?
Oh, that's what we're doing next.
Oh, okay.
I think
Thank you.
so. That motion passes. Thank you. And I appreciate everyone's perspective on this. I think it's very important. And it'll shape the conversation as we move forward. So that input, very much appreciated. With that, we're gonna want folks on this ad hoc. Are there any volunteers?
I will volunteer.
Committee member Castaneda has volunteered.
I'll volunteer.
Vice Chair Harris has volunteered. How many vote? We need 3.
I voted yes, so I will volunteer.
Oh, committee member Sclafani has volunteered. Any other volunteers? This would be 3, 4, up to
We can have
5.
up to, there's 11 member or 12 members total right now. We have 2 empty seats, so we can have up to 5.
Up to 5. Okay. Any other volunteers? No less than 2. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 would be hilarious. All right. Any other? No.
I can just confirm. So we have committee member Castaneda, Vice Chair Harris, and committee member Sclafani as being interested in the committee, correct? Okay.
Great. All right. So we'll have a motion, correct, to approve the committee members who volunteered for the ad hoc.
I'll make a motion to approve those committee members.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. That is a motion by Secretary Caceres and a second by committee member Castaneda. Any discussion?
I think Roberts precludes discussion on nominations.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. Should we call a vote?
Committee member Anderson, how do you vote?
Nay.
Committee member Price, how do you vote?
Abstain.
All right, just give me one. Committee member Emerson, how do you vote?
I'll abstain.
Committee member Castaneda, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Sandoval, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Committee member Hammond, how do you vote?
I'll abstain.
Committee member Johns, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee members Clofani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Secretary Cazares, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Vasilakis, how do you vote?
Aye.
One moment while we calculate. Motion carries with 6 yeses, 1 no, and 4 abstentions.
They're really putting me to work tonight.
Great. Well, I appreciate the volunteers. I appreciate the appointments. That motion passes and we can move on.
Would now be an opportunity where I could formally motion to create an ad hoc committee for community or for Power 100 champions? I don't know what to call it, maybe a
Second.
champion committee.
Is the proposal focused on business specifically?
Business and community-based organizations. Mhm.
This would be an appropriate time if you wanted to put that forward.
Then I will make that motion.
And I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion by Secretary Caceres to create this ad hoc committee focused on Power 100 for small businesses and community-based organizations, and a second from committee member Anderson. Should we have discussion?
Yes, having seconded the motion, I think there's very good reason to have this committee. Remember, the original purpose of San Diego Community Power is sort of twofold. One is to reduce the total amount of non-renewable energy consumed in San Diego County. The second purpose is to provide information and service to our customers within. To me, this motion, this committee would optimize both of those objectives. As a former communication professor, I would love to collaborate with staff and with members of this committee on creating some interesting persuasive strategies to try to augment the number of people opting up for Power 100. So I greatly appreciate the motion and I fully support it.
Additional comments? Committee member Hammond?
I would like to request the motion be amended to also include something that I've proposed to staff before, is trying to figure out how organizations can offer their employees, which would be on the residential side, like a credit to opt up. And so I think that's something worth us discussing. And so if we're going to be very, very specific about the title of the ad hoc, I would ask if the person who made the motion would be willing to accept an amendment to include that.
I would second.
Yeah, I am certainly open to that as long as it makes sense I want to hear from council. That's fine.
If the maker in the motion accepted it as part of the motion, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can broaden our scope to like,
Employer.
Yeah, to me,
yeah,
to me, that would be one strategy
yeah, it's a part of it.
that this committee would consider. So
Yeah, it still feels like it's a part of it.
All under objectives.
Yeah, so what
Yeah.
about simplifying the scope to include all that, as
Well-
opposed to being extremely specific?
Right,
Just have a Power 100 ad hoc group. And
Right.
then it decides eventually what it's going to do, whether it's, including tower sting or any other thing that may
Yeah.
come up under Power 100.
yeah.
So the scope would be returning to the CAC with recommendations on on programs or staff or objectives relating to Power 100 opting out.
Right.
my sense was that was the motion.
That was my sense as well when I made the motion.
Okay.
I don't know how it was worded, but
Yeah.
Wasn't
But,
too.
but it is the focus on small businesses and community-based organizations. And, right, and I think, that is, employers are included in that. So I think we can discuss the scope of this a little bit further once we have a committee meeting, or an ad hoc meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like the motion has been amended by.
I wouldn't necessarily consider that an amendment, as it's gonna fall under what the committee does, so it's more of a clarification than an amendment to the motion.
Okay, we don't need to change the title.
No.
Okay, great. Any other comments?
And it passed.
We haven't voted yet.
We voted. We'll get there.
Been a long.
Members of the vote?
Sorry, I'm hungry.
Is,
I'm
I'm gonna say vote as a member of Hammond, where I'm a part of certain organizations and I have connections to some of the small businesses in IB, and IB is really small, everybody knows each other, especially when you're doing activism. So how do we still participate in these things without crossing that line of like conflict of interest?
For this particular item, because it's so removed from actual policies or recommendations, it's simply creation of an ad hoc committee. If for those reasons you chose not to serve on it, I could understand that, or if you had reason not to. But voting on the committee itself, I wouldn't consider to be a conflict or a concern.
And I'll also we don't know each other yet. I actually work for the Chamber of Commerce, so I like to do business policy. And it's not focused on specific businesses, it's focused on strategies to bring more in. So I think it wouldn't be a conflict of interest for you to serve, I would presume.
Correct.
Okay.
I agree.
Would serving on the committees be a conflict of interest in any way?
No, I think it might be a little bit different consideration for the grants committee, because they might have a more direct impact by
financial.
applying for a grant and potentially coming down to them. I don't think that's as much of a concern here, where you're talking about voluntary participation by businesses.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's why they're doing this.
Right, exactly.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Before we call a vote? All right, please clerk, call the vote.
Committee member Anderson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Price, how do you vote?
Yes.
Committee member Emerson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Committee member Castaneda, how do you vote? Aye. Committee member Sandoval, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Hammond, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Johns, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Sclafani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Secretary Cazares, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Vasilakis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with all committee members voting yes.
Back to normal now.
All right, well, we would need now to make appointments of up to 5 members on this ad hoc committee. Do we have any volunteers?
I have a question.
Oh,
Can we serve on more than one ad hoc? Okay. I'd
Yeah.
like to volunteer.
Committee member Castaneda's volunteered. I see Secretary Cazares, committee member Sandoval, and committee member Anderson. That's 4. Oh, committee member Hammond as well. That's 5.
I think that's our max.
That's our max, but we,
Do we have?
does anyone want to breach and? Okay, I think we're good.
And if I could just repeat the name of the committee members, committee member Castaneda, secretary Cazares, committee member Anderson, committee member Sandoval, and committee member Hammond. Is that correct?
Correct. We don't need discussion.
Living up to his sweaters.
All right, should we call a vote?
All right, committee member.
Can we have a motion in second?
Oh, no, we don't have a motion.
We don't have a motion.
We'll vote anyway.
We don't have a motion. We'll push it
We
through.
need a motion to approve these folks for volunteers.
I so move.
Committee member Johns
I second.
is moving, committee member Price has seconded.
On the vote we already took, right?
No.
Nope, we haven't done
We
it.
have to take.
But this is for the appointing of the members.
Appointing
Okay.
the members.
So the motion to appoint is now on the table. We can now please call a vote.
Committee member Anderson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Price, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Emerson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Castaneda, how do you vote? Aye. Committee member Sandoval, how do you vote? Aye. Committee member Hammond, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Johns, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Sclafani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Secretary Cazares, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Vasilakis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with all committee members voting yes.
Wonderful. All right, before we close this item out, were there any other ad hoc committee proposals? Seeing none, I will move this along to regular agenda item number 10. Thank you all, by the way, for your hard work on that last item. Approval of the amendments to the CAC scope of work, and I will turn over to staff for this item and presentation.
Yes, and you're basically with me for the rest of the night. So item 10, the approval of amendments to the CAC scope of work. My name is Xiomara Crespo, Community Engagement Manager for the record. So to provide specific guidance to CAC members on the roles and responsibilities of the CAC, staff is recommending amendments to the scope of work approved at the January 30, 2020 Board of Directors meeting and last amended during the August 26, 2021 meeting. Concurrent to revisions to the annual CAC work plan and the standard operating procedures, staff worked closely with the Community and Equity Ad Hoc Committee to revise the CAC scope of work in a way that better captures members' duties and clarifies processes and authority. The proposed amendments include changing the timeframe of the CAC work plan from fiscal years to calendar years to better track outcomes independent of member terms, adding language to clearly reflect SDCP's priority of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as the CAC's equity overview focus, and specifying the role of members in representing all of our member agencies. As part of the agenda package, you were provided a red line version showing all proposed changes, as well as a clean version that the Board of Directors will consider for adoption at the January 18, 2020 Board regular meeting. Should there not be any other revisions to this document at this time? I'm happy to answer any questions, and I just want to thank our Community and Equity Ad Hoc Committee for really their leadership in taking a first stab at these revisions.
Great. Well, Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
You do not.
Thank you. All right, now I'll turn it over for CAC member comments. I see Committee Member Johns.
It's just a question. If we're switching to the calendar year, but we're maintaining our terms for committee members, still to be the changeover in July, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, do we have a motion? Or I'll turn it over for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the CAC scope of work.
Second.
All right, Committee Member Castaneda has motioned, Committee Member Price has seconded. All right. Is there a discussion part here?
You need to if there's.
Nope. Great, all right, well, let's call a vote.
Committee Member Anderson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee Member Price, how do you vote?
Yep.
Committee Member Emerson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member. Committee member Castaneda, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Sandoval, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Hammond, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Johns, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee member Sclafani, how do you vote?
Aye.
Secretary Cazares, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Vasilakis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with all committee members voting yes.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you, committee staff. All right, we will now move on to item 11. Approval of the amendments to the CAC policies and procedures. I will again turn it over to CEO to present the item.
Yes, Xiomara Crespo, Community Engagement Manager. So previously named standard operating procedures and last discussed at the CAC during its July 8, 2022 regular meeting. The proposed amendments to the CAC policies and procedure are an effort to streamline and clarify guidance around compliance related to membership, meetings, and processes. Staff worked with SDCP's legal counsel to create these changes, which are expected to enhance committee and meeting efficiency. Of note, staff has included the membership terms and criteria, a previously separate document, in the proposed policies and procedures to create a single document related to the policies, procedures, and membership of the CAC that members may more efficiently reference. And additionally, recommended amendments include consolidating various sections under new headings, outlining the member selection process, clarifying term duration after a vacancy is filled and term limits are reached, establishing the bylaws as meeting procedure unless otherwise provided in the policies and procedures, reaffirming that no items suggested during a regular meeting can be discussed unless included in the agenda, and adding Brown Act language regarding social media and email addresses. Next slide, please. As part of the agenda package, you were provided the version that the Board of Directors will consider for adoption at the January 18, 2024 regular meeting. Should there not be any other revisions at this time? And this version includes sections on membership responsibilities, meetings, conduct, the roles of officers and protocols for interacting with staff and the board, requesting information to support CAC work, creating ad hoc or subcommittees like you just did, creating and updating the work plan like we will do shortly, and conducting outreach and representing SDCP to the community. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
All right, CAC members, comments?
Did you leave that last slide up that was showing? There we go.
Do we have any committee member comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Member Anderson, do we have a
Second.
second? Seconded by Secretary Cazares.
To confirm, this is to approve and then recommend board approval.
To send to the board and then.
Correct.
So, and
And it's motion by Anderson, seconded by Cazares.
Right, thank you, Megan.
And committee member Anderson, how do you vote?
I think, I don't have anything to say about this, but I think the next move is for discussion. I don't think we've discussed it, have we? We've heard a proposal. We've got a motion and a second. You should have discussion next.
I believe I heard the president ask for any comments.
I thought that was just from the public. I didn't.
Oh, that was prior.
You can have discussion.
We can have discussion though.
Just announce it.
No, I appreciate the coaching here for this.
Sorry.
No.
Discussion before the motion's made, after the motion's made.
Yeah.
So that's where the.
Yeah, we called for comments before, but we can have discussion now as well. Does anyone have any discussion on the motion? Thank you. All right, please call the vote.
Committee member Anderson,
Aye.
committee member Price. How do you vote?
Stepped out.
Stepped out. Committee member Emerson, how do you vote?
I'll vote aye, but when we have these documents, it's nice if you highlight what the changes were for future reference.
Committee member Castaneda,
Aye.
committee member Sandoval,
Aye.
committee member Hammond,
Aye.
committee member Jans,
Aye.
committee member Sclafani,
Aye.
secretary Cazares,
Aye.
vice chair Harris,
Aye.
chair Vasilakis.
Aye.
Motion carries with all committee members voting yes.
Thank you.
Could I just make one comment that our committee, the Equity Committee did receive where changes were being made within the document. So our committee had a chance to really look at those changes that were being made and that's all I wanted to say.
No, thank you for the clarification.
I got a quick point of order. I don't think it was true that it was unanimous. There was one abstention.
He was absent, so it was
You
unanimous.
called an absence?
Yeah, because he was not behind the dais at the vote.
Thank you.
Good, another great note. All right, we'll now move on to our last item on the regular agenda. Thank you all for sticking it out. Update on the 2024 CAC work plan. Again, we'll turn it over to CEO for presentation.
Committee Engagement Manager. And anticipating the process of updating the CAC fiscal year 2022-2023 work plan, staff worked with members to revise the CAC scope of work pending board approval at its January 18, 2024 meeting to change the timeframe of the CAC work plan from fiscal years to calendar years. Staff also leveraged the formation of the Community Equity Ad Hoc Committee to discuss the upcoming work plan in 3 separate occasions, both in its November, December, and its last meeting in January. So proposed changes to the current work plan include clarifying strategies under each focus to better track progress and outcomes, specifying proposed educational presentations, defining information sharing protocols to activate member advocacy, deleting redundant areas of focus, updating areas of focus to reflect status of implementation, and adding civic engagement and participation as an area of focus to explore and develop ways to increase participation at CAC meetings, leverage CAC members' networks, and foster CAC member turnover resiliency. Next slide, please. This update is another opportunity for members to provide feedback and engage in discussion on the draft 2024 CAC work plan provided in the agenda packet so that it may be approved as part of the consent calendar during the February 8, 2024 regular CAC meeting and then at the Board of Directors meeting during its February 2024 meeting. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, CEO. Megan, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
All right, we'll now turn over to the committee for discussion. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, this is a file and receipt, so we shall move forward. Thank you. So we'll move on to our standing items, discussion of potential agenda items for Board of Director meetings. As a reminder, the CAC may suggest agenda items for a Board of Directors meeting agenda by communicating with the CAC chair and designated SDCP staff before and or after a regular CAC meeting. If suggested at this time, there shall be no discussion or action by the CAC unless the item has been included on the CAC agenda. Do any of our CAC members have recommendations on potential items for the Board of Directors? I see no recommendations. Well, seeing no recommendations, let's move on to committee member announcements. Do any of our CAC members have any items they'd like to share today? Member Price?
And this may have already happened, but can we get this glossary of terms emailed to?
Yes, I'm happy to. I just want to also point out that it's easily accessible on the website. It's also at the end of the packets that I sent out whenever I send a meeting reminder, and you should have a printed version.
Yeah. Thank you. So was that a yes or a no?
I would say yes, multiple places.
Yes, and. Love a yes, and.
That wasn't the question.
All right, any other announcements? All right, just as a reminder, the CAC currently has 2 vacancies, one for the city of Chula Vista and one for the county of San Diego unincorporated territories. Members of the public who are interested in the position can access the application materials through the SDCP website, sdcommunitypower.org, and learn more. With that, that brings us to the end of the agenda. I appreciate all of your participation, and we are adjourned until our next regular meeting on February 8th, 2024. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.